like lends itself very well to your tech requirements. So you have the Celestias of the world, the DYDXs of the world that have actually done this and to very great effect. And if you see, since then you have this whole sort of modular meta play out, right? So you have now this layer twos, and now you have roll-up as services that will help you build more layer twos. You have now eigen layers saying you can just leverage the security, so you don't even need a validator set, your own validator set to kind of power this. So now it's become much more easy for people to kind of imagine their set of smart contracts actually living on their own chain and not having to share block space with anyone else, not having some random application, suddenly spike up gas costs. So you are in more control. So
Right.
this ecosystem has really played out really well, and which is why we feel very confident of being able to bootstrap our own sort of modular L1 going forward.
Brilliant. So can you also tell us a little about on the community side, what does Arcana do? Just shedding a little light on the marketing efforts that you guys are putting in to gain all of this wonderful traction. I think it would be very helpful for entrepreneurs who are listening in to gain some insights from it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Marketing in Web3 is a beast. It is something that you have to sort of focus on, and as much as possible try and do in-house. But doing it in-house and doing it well is going to be problematic, because most of the times what happens is Web3 founders are so mostly like tech savvy geeks, nerds who want to kind of realize their products, and marketing usually takes a backseat.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for people to even give it time of day. So what happens is that usually you end up outsourcing it, and that is a big problem, because outsourcing it to someone within the space, and I'm sure Tarusha, you'd had your share of experiences where you don't really have great actors or reliable agencies who can actually do a good job of taking and marketing your product that so well, and they don't, and making a complete hash of it. And then your community completely misunderstanding you.
Yeah, the communication suffers, right? And then the entire perception, the narrative building, all of that can suffer in the wrong hands.
Absolutely. So it's very key for someone within the founding team or like a very early employee who gets it completely, to kind of take complete responsibility of this side of things. Even if you have to work with third party agencies, like how do you keep them honest, how do you keep them professional, how do you keep them sticking to certain KPIs? These are some of the hard things that it's very hard to find very professional third parties within the space. Everyone's out here to kind of make a quick buck, which is unfortunate. So the more you can sort of internalize all of this sort of stuff and give it enough time of day and the resources for it, for like a marketing function within your team to succeed, that then it starts to become, you can start doing very powerful things that are more in your control. The communication, like you said, is more on point. But this is something that you really need to lay a lot of impetus on.
Right. Absolutely. I think I have advised certain startups, and at lots of times, these founders that say that, okay, we are more technically sound and we'd like to perhaps look at outsourcing the marketing. And I've always advised against it, especially initially. You do not want that. You want that initial messaging to be from the founders themselves, from the horse's mouth, so to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The founders are the best marketing sort of agents for any startup. This is true of all big startups, right, within the space, all big companies. And their founders are their biggest proponents, some of the biggest voices. You won't see too many startups where the founders are not on Twitter every other day, beating their chest and shouting and screaming from the rooftops. And this is something that everyone needs to sort of understand. I'm sure it's also like a very personal personality trait sort of thing. Not every founder is capable of doing this, but I'm sure there are people within the team who can actually do this and become voices. And we've seen this happen. We've seen this play out even with, say, the likes of Solana, where like the founders themselves are probably not the biggest voices. I mean, of course, Anatoly is a big personality in the space, but some of the other people within the team are some of the biggest voices also. So this is
Right.
something that we need, like founders need to take note of and treat very seriously.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. This is something that even if it makes you uncomfortable, perhaps you need to push yourself a little bit and do it for your product. And once you, I think, when you start doing anything, you learn the ropes and then you start gaining momentum.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, this is marketing is a function of, yes, of course, creativity, but
Hmm.
also of like consistency and discipline.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Now, I would love to talk a little about your tokenomics and, you've led successful funding rounds and, you've listed the token as well. Let's talk a little about the kind of time that a typical founder spends on building the tokenomics and getting it right. And then let's touch a little upon how do you envision the role of tokenomics in your network's growth and sustainability?
Yeah, so I have like another take here, which
Hmm.
may not be very popular, perhaps, I don't know. But essentially, I feel like, you know, releasing a token is a company going public.
Right.
That's the be all and end all of it, and we have to understand that.
Yeah.
And you have to be sort of ready for it. If you look at traditional markets, then typically people IPO many years into their existence. And what this affords them is achieving a certain degree of maturity, not only
Yeah.
like personally for founders and for people, but also like processes and systems and all of those sorts of things. What what happens in our industry is like, you tokenomics is what is taking someone's Excel sheet of tokenomics and sort of like changing numbers here and there and sort of like presenting it as something extremely well thought out. Most of the time, this
Hmm.
is what happens
Yeah.
because you're in a rush, you're in a hurry, you need to get it out because suddenly there is a bull market and there's people are telling you left, right, center, you need to release token and things like that. And these things don't play out very well when done in this fashion. And people, most of the times, founders themselves are simply not ready for what it means to go public. And of course, not at the scale of traditional markets, but sort of close to it. And you have tens of thousands of people that you need to kind of impress in order for them to be able to kind of, say, put their hard earned money into your vision and what you want to be able to do. And if things don't go as to like plan, which is basically people becoming richer off of your hard work, then they are going to come back to you and crib and complain and shout and scream and all of those sorts of things. And then you need to kind of go into like firefighting mode and all of these
Yeah.
sorts of things start to happen, which take you away from what you were building in the first place.
Exactly.
So yeah, so this is something that I think needs to change. It's already started to change. Like people earlier would launch projects and go to like release a token in the first few months. Now it is a couple of years, uh, and that is it's something that stakeholders within your ecosystem, whether it's investors or anyone else, are willing to accept. And people have more time to be able to kind of build things out, gain more maturity, build out a team, build out teams of people that can actually manage, going public and things, those sorts of things. So, yeah, I mean, we obviously had our time, we took our time as well. So I think we were slightly in a better spot than some of the other people are. Like
Hmm.
we had enough time to sort of plan this and things like that. Of course, nothing ever goes to plan when you release a token, and
Hmm.
I'm sure you
That's
know
true.
all about it.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, similar things happened to us. I mean, we launched to what was seemingly a good market, and then war breaks out, and now macro affects crypto,
Yeah.
and then suddenly everything goes downhill, and then we have 1,000 people in my DMs shouting and screaming and saying that
Yeah.
this happened and that happened. So yeah, I mean, you need to have some thick skin for sure, but you
Yeah.
need to have right guidance, right people around you. You need to also be planning for this very intricately. Yeah, so it's not easy for sure.
Absolutely. I think this is one of the harder things that one has to do as a Web3 entrepreneur, I think, simply because, like you said, that this is, when in traditional sense, a company goes public, they've had all of this experience, they have this wealth of experience, they have these products that are fully functioning, they have massive amounts of traction. And their vision is very cut out for them when they do go out and seek funds from the public. But very on the contrary, when you're doing it in Web3, you're very early, and the team might not be that mature. And when you are going all out and going public with your token, then you need to have that sense of decorum, that stability, and just somebody who's sound with designing this rather than just copy pasting something that you've seen online, because this ultimately defines how your company's entire vision is going to play out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think enough thought goes into that, like you rightly
Yeah.
said. And if it can determine the whole entire existence of your startup in the long term. Short term things may just be fine,
Yeah.
but you have to get very lucky for it not to affect you in the long term. And that is something that I think more people need to be made aware of.
Absolutely. I think this is not something that one should take lightly. Nowadays, I don't think it is so much of a trend, but in the last cycle, there were all of these experts as well who used to tout their services for designing tokenomics of projects, which I
Hmm.
found very absurd as well. Unless somebody is really personally, they had their skin in the game and they really understand your vision. How can they design something so essential to a project like tokenomics? What is your take on that?
No, absolutely. And this is across the industry. You always have
Hmm.
these so-called experts who have absolutely no skin in the game
Right.
and will fleece you for a fee, and you feel
Hmm.
that you need to you're at their behest, and there is no other option. The option, unfortunately, was that you need to pay a lot of attention to this, and nobody told you that you need to, and that is the unfortunate part. But if you get the right sort of like backer, if you get the right sort of advisors in this space, then you are in a better spot to be made aware of some of these things. And but all of this needs to become more common knowledge. This needs to be spoken about
Yeah.
more openly within the industry as it is, so that people start asking these questions even with the people that they have available to them. And so you avoid these pitfalls of where you feel like, oh, I have no other option except to work with this random dude who claims to have done magic for someone else, and there is no other data point outside of that as to why they would be useful for me, or I will be successful because of them. I mean, there is nothing. Any sort of like success that you want will compound on top of what you fundamentally put in place,
Hmm.
and that is a bare fact. Unless you do the hard work, unless you've like laid the right sort of fundamentals, whether it comes to like tokenomics, whether it comes to marketing or product, whatever it may be, you will no one is going to come, no one has a silver bullet that will come in and change your fortunes. That is just not going to happen unless you are extremely lucky. Serendipity plays a very important role in this space for sure, but
Hmm.
it will only compound what you already have.
Right. Absolutely. Wow, that's a beautiful way of putting it, I think. Serendipity is important here. It does happen, but it'll only compound what you have. I think this is a quotable quote from here. So, can we now perhaps talk a little, like, let's zoom out, let's move away a little bit from Arcana, and let's talk a little about the Web3 space in general, because we are running short of time and I really don't want this conversation to end because it has been very, very insightful. But I do need to ask you, what are your feelings about the market currently, and what are the kind of sectors or niches within Web3 that you think would do really well in the uh, ongoing or upcoming bull run?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I need to firstly say, it's like state this clearly. Like any sort of opinions I have on market are extremely ill-formed.
Yeah,
When I say market, I'm talking about like prices and things like that because I don't
yeah,
trade.
right.
I'm an extremely bad trader, and whenever I've thought that I should do something to kind of sort of grow my personal sort of like wealth by operating in crypto markets, I have only lost money. So
Right.
I should,
Yeah.
whatever I say there should
Take it
not
with a pinch
be
of
like
salt.
take like a whole bag of salt. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, markets will do what they have to do.
Right.
You cannot control it. You cannot time markets.
Hmm.
You have to get very lucky, and those sorts of things. But the outlook currently is that certain sort of macro events need to like calm down before things start to move forwards and upwards. I think we were on a nice trajectory. Now we are seemingly in like in this pullback, and hopefully things should change at a macro level, which will probably bring in more interest. When things are stable, people are more comfortable to kind of start making investments. But there's so many sort of ifs and buts. So yeah, that is as much as I will say about like markets in general. But yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in where the the market is, like the whole crypto industry is going, as in terms of like the products and the solutions that are getting built in the space. That side definitely appeals to me, and I like to think I am abreast of what is happening. So for sure, I feel like this whole sort of modular uh, sort of uh, like theme or meta is going to play out very well.
Hmm.
I think there are going to be a lot of people building, now application specific chains, sovereign chains, and either using like an eigen layer or using their own validator set to kind of be able to power these sorts of things, because getting your own throughput, getting control over your block space is going to be very, very important. I think pragmatically speaking, that makes a lot of sense. So you're going to see a lot of L2s, a lot of L3s, a lot of sovereign chains, a lot of Validiums. All of these things start getting built over the next bunch of years, because you can see that ecosystem being built and being made ready for all of these things to start happening. And I think that's going to play out really well. But what's going to happen as a result of all of these chains being born is a lot of fragmentation. There are that many more chains that users are going to have to go and create wallets on and put funds on and do all of these sorts of things. And especially liquidity fragmentation and experience fragmentation is going to be like a big problem, which is where I think like this other meta of chain abstraction, which we are sort of like aligning with, everything seems to be going in that direction for us, is going to play out very well. Because now what you need to be able to say is that while these users are on these different chains and have all these tokens and assets on these different chains, they should still be able to use any application built anywhere. And if you can make that possible, then now you have this extremely like diverse, almost like this mesh network of users and apps, but it just works. So I am extremely bullish on these two things happening
Hmm.
over the next couple of years. Outside of that, there are areas like AI and things like that, and people say it's hard. I don't understand it well enough to give you a nuanced take.
Right. Yeah. You and I both, I think AI is very dynamic. It's very exciting to be looking at it and all the developments that are happening, and how there is a obvious use case with the kind of content and all the content that is being created with AI, ensuring the veracity of it using blockchain. And that is like, I think where my understanding kind of starts dimming beyond
Mm.
that. But
Yeah.
I would love to learn more and expand my horizons there. But having said that, what you've said, fragmentation and kind of working on, again, solving some real problems that the industry is facing, the users are facing, that is going to be the next big thing in the upcoming bull run.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that that's how it's going to play out.
Hmm.
And I'm also biased because we are building in
Yeah,
that space.
right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, everything points there.
So now, because we are really running out of time, I need to ask you just these last two questions. One is, what would be, your advice to entrepreneurs and builders in this space? Because you've been a serial entrepreneur, you're a thought leader. Can you tell us like the top two lessons that you would like to perhaps impart to builders and aspiring founders?
Yeah. Uh, top two. Okay, so I'm in no particular order going to say number one is if you are in it for the tech and that is your strongest suit, you need to kind of, as builders, as founders, need to arm yourself with advisors, investors, team members who can look at other aspects for you. These would be people whose incentives are well aligned with you, which is why I wouldn't say anyone else really matters. So as long as you can find the right set of, say, advisors, investors, then you should go seek them and you should find them. And or team members who can like sort of create this, like basically support your skill set, which is probably pure tech. Then you have like a complementary set of skills that will work for you, and that is very important to seek out and put in place for sure. The other thing is, I think, especially with Indian founders, is
Hmm.
that I feel like we are extremely sort of like shy, and uh, shy is one word, but I also would say timid, not very out there when it comes to talking and more about our product. We are shy to like grow our networks. We are shy to say certain things out loud,
Hmm.
and we need to kind of get past that, because
Yeah.
until unless we do so, we are always going to be looked at as people who can support this industry as opposed to being pioneers in the space, which we have every right to be able to sort of claim you on the back of some of the giants in the space who've actually done fantastically well. Case in point being Polygon. And if we can sort of like emulate these sorts of people and see what they've done, and also look to the West and even to the Far East and places like China, where there is nothing that people feel shy about. Whether if you're in a conference, go talk to everyone and anyone and tell them more about yourself. You need to have that hustle about you,
Hmm.
and you need to have this very clear mindset to be able to shout and scream, because who else will if not
Yeah,
you?
right. Yeah. If you're not going to do it, who else will? And I feel a little called out myself, I think, because, even the best of us feel a little shy about touting our own horn. But, over
Yeah,
the years, I've learned it time and again that if I don't do it, who would?
exactly. And I've seen this especially with Indian founders. I'm
Yeah.
also guilty of it for sure.
Right.
We also sort of half-ass so many things when we are trying to do things. And usually it's like, I like to think of it this way, is that most of the times founders within, like Indian founders within the crypto space are usually typically like from middle class backgrounds. And then the middle class Indian in you sort of kicks in and says, Arey, nahi karna, ye bahut zyada ho jayega. This is just a bit too much. And things like that. So that you need to curb that voice a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very, very good advice for our founders. And now I'm going a little fast because I need to wrap this up, but I do
Yes,
need
yes,
to ask you one
absolutely.
question that I ask everybody who comes on the show. And this question has remained a constant for all of these 5, 6 years that I've been doing this podcast. You made a leap from, Web 2 to Web 3. You were working in tech, and then during, as I mentioned earlier, waiting for one of the greatest blessings in life, you received another as well. But you
Yeah,
made that leap, right? So what would be
yeah.
your suggestions for somebody who's perhaps still a little unsure about the space to truly start living on blockchain? What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, I mean, it has to appeal to you at a very carnal level, like blockchains themselves. It has to
Hmm.
appeal to, which is extremely cliche way of putting it, but it has to appeal to your soul and what you want to do.
Yeah.
It has to become your life's work because you have to immerse yourself in it. There is no getting out of this space once you are in it and you are committed to it. So in order to be able to commit, it has to appeal to you at that level. And if it does, then you need to like take that almighty leap. And once you do that, then I think the space can be extremely rewarding as long as you remain pragmatic and understanding of the space and what it has to offer and how it offers it. And you should definitely not give in to hype. Hype is the last reason you should get into this space because it is not going to last long. So unless you have that thing that will drive you at your lowest point to say that no, I got into this space because it really appeals to me and I want to kind of make like real change happen in this world and affect it in some way, whatever it may be. Uh, Only then you should get into this space. And but once you do, you should just commit all the way.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Once you do, just commit all the way. And if this is something that is really speaking to you on a very primal level, then yes, this is the path that you should really go all in for. So that's a wonderful way to end this conversation. Mayur, thank you so much once again for making the time to speak to me today. I am sure that a lot of entrepreneurs will find a lot of insights from this conversation. And before we wrap this up, any parting thoughts?
Not really. No, thanks for having me here and giving me an opportunity to speak my mind. Sometimes it may not be the nicest or most popular things that I may say about this space, but thanks for the opportunity and very happy to be able to do this.
Thank you so much once again.